It's always great to hear a player's perspective as they sit up here and talk through as you go through fall camp and get ready for a game. Always interesting to hear a player's perspective. But let me start as we have fall camp is over and the season is, I guess, officially underway as we have got into our season schedule, broke camp, some things that we were really trying to get done during camp. And we talked about a new defensive coordinator, some of the new coaches, the new kicking game coordinator, trying to get terminology put in place, trying to get everything taught with what we were trying to do on both sides of the ball and in the kicking game. We were trying to develop leadership, and we were trying to develop a depth chart. And I think we have had an outstanding fall camp. You go through fall camp to get ready for a 12-week season. And I think as you look at fall camp, you're trying to develop depth. You're not just looking at your starters with the competitions going on, but you're trying to look at your depth from top to bottom. And I think this is a very talented team that we have right now. I think when I look at the full 70 travel list, I think it's a mix of a lot of experience. When you look at guys that have played a lot of football, when you start talking Jamar Smith, Ethan Reed, Cody Russi, Adrian Hardy, you start to look at some guys that have played a lot of football. And on the defensive side of the ball, when you talk Courtney Wallace, Kadarian Mason, Colin Scott, L'Jarius Sneed, Amik Robertson. Again, you've got a great mix of guys that have played a lot of football for you. But there's also a lot of new faces that are going to show up in this season that by the end of this season are going to become very familiar with Louisiana Tech fans. And so I start to look at, alluded to up here earlier today, but you talk about Isaiah Graham, who was sat out, is going to make an immediate impact. Malik Stanley at wide receiver is going to make an immediate impact. I look at Willie Allen at left tackle and the job that he's done and the progress that he's made at the tackle position. I look at Byron Rossell as a young guy that's going to make a major league contribution. At safety, they've talked about B.J. Williamson and the role that he has played and the athleticism that he brings the position right now. I look at Trey Baldwin, who redshirted last year, who was a linebacker that signed out of Missouri out of high school, went to junior college, came here, sat out last year, and the way that he's coming along and the way that he's emerging. I think there's going to be a lot of new faces mixed in with a lot of experienced seasoned vets. So I felt like it was a very productive fall camp that we went through. At the end of fall camp, we sit down, and one of the things we talk about every year is developing the leadership. And I can't say enough positive things about the Leadership Council, the 20 guys that were voted into the Leadership Council and the role that they've all played, and just really the energy, the focus of this football team. And they have proven to me they want to be good. And our job as a coaching staff is to set a standard and continue to push them. And I've really been impressed with the leadership on this team. With that being said, at the end of fall camp, we also elect captains. And just to announce the 4 captains that were selected off this year's football team on offense, this team selected as its 2 offensive captains, Cody Russi and Bobby Holly, as the 2 captains. And on the defensive side of the ball, they elected Kadarian Mason and L'Jarius Sneed. I think, like I said, there are 20 guys that have really taken a huge role in leadership on this team. But I think the captains that they've selected, not to take away from anybody else on the Leadership Council, but I think they've made 4 excellent selections with who's going to lead this football team as we go into the 2019 season. I think that will be relied on heavily on, obviously, the 4 captains, but we'll continue to rely heavily on the 20 that are in the Leadership Council right now and the role that they've played and the outstanding job they did get in this football team through fall camp. With all that being said, a little bit of the housekeeping of fall camp and what we had to get through. Now it's getting into the season. Now you start to get into your opponents, not a 12-game season, but a 1-game season. For us, that begins with Texas. Talk about starting right out of the chutes. We better be playing at a really high level. I've seen an awful lot written. I know Texas is I keep hearing Texas is back, preseason, top 10 team. I'm listening to the radio, talk radio coming in this morning. One of the people were projecting the top 4 teams to make it to the championship game. I guess we can never get started on that early enough. Right now, as everybody is still in contention, I was a little disappointed I didn't hear Louisiana Tech mentioned. But at the same point in time, I heard Texas mentioned by 3 of the 5 people that were trying to put their top tiers together. So we know what type of opponent we're playing right from the get-go. I think Coach Herman has done a great job with his football team. It is Texas. I grew up in Arkansas with the Southwest Conference when Texas had Earl Campbell and the Jones brothers from Lamb, Ham, Bam, Sam, Wham. I mean, every Jones brother there was. And year in and year out, Texas was competing for a national championship. I think it's good for college football when Texas is winning. I think they've got an incredible tradition, an incredible history as a university, and there's nothing but respect I have for that program and the people that are involved with it. With my son being there, I had an opportunity to be a little bit closer to it, really to follow it, and just really impressed with the way they do everything from A to Z. I know what type of challenge we have in front of us. I know our football team knows what type of challenge we have in front of us. And it's not just that we've got a lot of guys that we've got to put together for the 2019 season, but we've got to go do it on the road in front of 100,000 people at a top 10 program. So great challenge for us, great opportunity for us at the same point in time, and I know something that our players are really looking forward to. What makes Texas back, what brings them back, I think it starts at the quarterback position. I have been as impressed with Sam Ehlinger as any other quarterback that I have seen. I heard him referred to, and I have referred to him as I think he is to Texas football right now what Tebow was to Florida football the couple of years with what Florida was doing. You look at them, they have very similar attributes. They're big, they're strong, they're physical football players. They're dual threat quarterbacks. They're runners. If it is a game-changing play, he's going to be involved in it. Whether it's a short yardage, 3rd and short, 4th and short, they're going to find a way to put the ball under his arm. They're going to find a way to run him. They're going to find a way to put it under his arm to throw it. I think he does an incredible job of managing their offense and what they ask him to do. He's very efficient at running their offense, and I think he is one of the key components that makes Texas football back. He is an incredible competitor, incredible leader. You just listen to him, the way he handles himself, the poise that he shows. I think he is really impressive, and he's going to create a handful for our defense, all we want. I don't think there's an awful lot you can give him he hasn't seen, already going through a season. He's seasoned. He's very mature, very heady, and very smart. And so I think he is a great quarterback. I look at what he's surrounded around, his wide receivers. I mean, you look at him, and it's like 6'6", 245, 6'6", 230. I thought I was looking at the tight end line, but no, they had one of those too. They were all just a little bit bigger than that. The receivers are huge. Their offensive line, they have 13 guys listed on their depth chart. 2 of them are under 6'6", 300 pounds. You look at them, they are, I want to say, cookie-cutter body shape. They want size, they want lean, they want speed, and they want athleticism. And as a school that is able to recruit the country, they have found it. Right now, it's an impressive depth chart when you look at it overall. The size of their receivers, the running back, he's got great speed, he breaks tackles. They're going to throw their 50-50 jump balls up. Our secondary is definitely going to be challenged. They can take the game and they can reduce it down to one of their 6'6" wide receivers and a jump ball with a 5'9" corner. They do an awful lot of good things with their talent and their personnel. So it's going to be a great challenge for us as a defense. And when I look at them defensively, same thing. I think they play a 3 down. They give you an awful lot of confusing looks. Their linebackers have size. They're all big and can run. That goes without saying. But I think the biggest thing when I look at their defense is stout. They will hit you. It starts with their 2 safeties running downhill, both 6'1", 205, physical football players. They run downhill. They're bonus linebackers. They put a lot of pressure on their corners, but their corners can handle it. Like I said, I just think it's a very, very talented team that does not have a lot of weakness in it, which is why I think some of the talking heads from all over the country have put Texas in the top 10, and many of them put them in the Final 4 in the national picture. So we know it's going to be a phenomenal challenge for us. We know it's going to be a great contest, but as I've said to our football team and to our staff, I think we're going to learn an awful lot about our football team this week. We're going to learn an awful lot about how they're going to handle adversity. We're going to learn an awful lot about how they're going to handle that environment with 100,000 people where you can't communicate, how we're going to handle playing on the road, how close we're going to be together as a football team. If we can maybe have grown and learned from some of our past experiences, both success and failures. When we talk about, I know one of the questions earlier was talked about the Arkansas game and the South Carolina game. And, that's all part of the evolving as a football team. And those are all experiences that hopefully will help us when we have to open the season this Saturday against Texas down in Austin at 7 o'clock. So we know it's going to be a great challenge, but one we're looking forward to as a football team. I think it's the lessons that the game teaches. I think it's the greatest game on the planet. And I say that for not necessarily just for the atmosphere and the electricity and the game day and the television cameras and the social setting of bringing everybody together, the way that it creates a badge of honor for so many schools around the country that their alumni have the opportunity to get tied back into the university. I think there's a lot of those things about it that make it great. But I think for the young men that play the game, for the coaches that are involved, I think it's the development of the student athletes. I think it's the lessons that this game teaches as a team, the unselfishness in a time when it's all about me, when it's all about when it's all about what can it do for me. This is a game that is a selfless game. There's 104 guys in camp. There's 11 going to be on the field at the same time. That means 90 guys either have to sit on the sideline and watch or won't even get an opportunity to play in the game. But it teaches you how to handle adversity, how to overcome adversity, how to work for something that you want for, that everything's not instantaneous in this millennial age that we pick up a phone and hit buttons and get pretty much whatever we want. It doesn't happen that way in life. It comes from day after day after day of banging that rock for these guys that are up front. I heard Jamar sit up here and talk about his experiences of the hurt and the setback of the feeling of guilt throwing an interception at South Carolina down in the red zone in the fourth quarter in a one-play game, that you shoulder the burden of that loss, of throwing an interception at Arkansas as a true freshman, having to shoulder that. And obviously here he is 4 years later talking about that. Obviously that's helped develop him, and sometimes it's the setbacks where you grow the most. I think it teaches young men how to get up every day when you get knocked down, when everything doesn't always go your way, and how you have to go work every single day for what you want. Nothing's going to be given to you, but you have to earn it. I just think there's an incredible amount of lessons that this game teaches of teamwork and togetherness that I think is what makes the game so special. I think there's two perspectives when you look at the 150 years. You can look at it through the eyes of a spectator of all the pageantry and awesome events and competitive moments and entertainment that it's brought millions, billions of people around the globe for the last 150 years. But I think it's also a whole segment could be built from the players that have played the game for 150 years and the lessons that they've learned from playing the game and how it's helped them and taken them to places that they never would have been without it. And so I love the game. I love everything it brings. I love the smell of the grass this time of year. I love the excitement, the energy, the 55 years old and getting nervous butterflies, before you go out onto the game and having to go play. I love that aspect of it. But I truly love the stories behind each one of the faces that looks at you every day in that locker room, and to see the things that they've overcome to get to where they are and to see them be successful. We have 9 players on this football team that have already graduated. They've already graduated in the day and age of the transfer portal, where people were leaving at record paces. As soon as you get a degree, it's a free pass to say I can go anywhere in the country and go play right away. And we have 9 guys, and they've all decided to stay here and play our senior year together with each other because this team means so much to me. those are the things to me that really make this game as rewarding as it is, and to have the opportunity to be here at Louisiana Tech with this group of young men. Short answer to a long question.
This week, Deontay Ingram, number 26 for Texas, kind of moves into that lead back role for them. He showed flashes of his ability as a true freshman last year. What are the challenges? How can you kind of bottle up an athlete like
that? I know this. There is a long, deep stable in Austin of running backs. When you look at the caliber of high school players that come out of that state, with them pretty much having their choice in the state, not only in the state, from around the country, they have a stable of running backs. And I think it's not just the stable of running backs, but you can't just corral a single player on that football team. As soon as you try and load the box, they have 6'6" wide receivers outside that can run and jump and are athletic and are going to put you in one-on-one situations, as I referred to. If you turn and try and play a two-shell spoke and be deep as the deepest and stay everybody back, they have huge athletic offensive linemen that they can create holes and openings, and then they've got running backs that can split it. So, and as soon as you try and play the middle ground, they have a quarterback that can do both. It becomes the 12th man on the football field and the single wing mentality with the quarterback run, but yet he can also sit back there with time given from their athletic offensive line, and he can throw the ball. So how do you stop Texas? I mean, nobody stopped them. There have been a couple people that maybe have outscored them when you look at what they're doing right now as an offensive football team, and that's one of the things that's going to create the challenges for us. We know that they're going to make some plays. I mean, this game is not going to turn out with a 0 on the backside of Texas. I mean, I know that they have talented players and they're going to make some plays, but it's going to be, how are we going to respond to the plays they make? And can we go back and play number 36 with the same confidence we played 1 through 35? Can we play number 72 with the same confidence regardless of what's happened for the previous plays before that? And I think that's where the mental challenge is going to come in for our defense, is to keep banging that rock, do their job. What is the call? I heard L'Jarius Sneed sit up here and say, it's not about the coaches making the call. The players are the call. We make the call with the mindset that we have in executing it, with the mindset we have in doing our job and being disciplined in the defensive scheme. I think that goes for our whole football team on Saturday. There's going to be gives and takes, and we just have to get ready to play a 60-minute game. And we have played some of these games close. I don't know that we've played a team ranked as high as Texas at this point, when I look at where they are. But it's going to be a great challenge for us. I know a year ago at LSU, it was a close football game in the third quarter until they pulled away from it a little bit. And hopefully we can keep this game close and we can make it entertaining for the people that are there to watch it, but also to build some confidence with ourselves as well. I think to a lot of them individually, it may be important, as I think to a lot of the players here on our roster from the state of Louisiana, it was important. I think to Jamar Smith and some of the players from years past from Mississippi, the Mississippi State game has been a huge game, and having the opportunity to play that Power 5 school. So I think for a lot of these players at Texas, maybe that grew up with the burnt orange of Texas and longing to maybe dreaming of one day having the opportunity to play there, they're going to get that opportunity this week. What we can't do is put anybody's individual feelings ahead of what's most important in this room. And I experienced that a little bit when we played Arkansas, which is where I grew up. And in that stadium as a little kid running up and down the sidelines, but at the end of the day, you're walking into that stadium with the Louisiana Tech logo on your chest, and it's about the commitment you have to the brothers that sit in this room and the obligation you have to go in there and be focused on what you have to do your job. This isn't about we're not going to run out of the tunnel with cameras around our neck and taking pictures of the crowds and building scrapbooks for the memories of once were. If we want to build our memories, it's going to be when the ball gets snapped and our focus and how we play as a football team. And I think that's the obligation that we have to each other, and that supersedes anybody's individual's feelings walking into this game.
Situationally and kind of make up stats about, when this happens, X, Y, Z records. What kind of stood out to me looking just now was the teams are 5-0 and scoring a touchdown on special teams. Is there any extra emphasis on, switching field position
There will be now that I know that statistic. There certainly will be now. We're going to change practice schedule. I got to go meet with the staff. The question is, with us being 5-0 when we've scored a special teams touchdown, is there any extra emphasis into the special teams? I think Dennis Smith has done a great job. I think Dennis Smith has come in, a new coordinator. He's energetic. He is passionate about what he does. He loves it. He's consumed with it. I think that he has done an excellent job of preparing this football team, and we have looked at an awful lot of things that we have to make sure cover in game one. I look at the Miami-Florida game where there's 5 turnovers in the game. There's 2 fake kicks run that were definitely difference makers that stole a possession for Florida and also put Florida for Miami and stole a possession for Miami down on a fake field goal. I think you try and cover every scenario, and you can look at it and you can say, you know what, we got to make sure we cover kickoff after a safety, kickoff return after a safety. How do you take a safety? How do you play punt safe? What are the things? You're trying to cover every scenario, and you certainly hope you have. But special teams is always big, especially in opening football games, because there's 2 things that are very hard to duplicate in special teams in an opener. And one is the speed at which it's going to come at you, and 2 is the space that it's played in. Because special teams are the biggest chunks of yardage. It is played pretty much in the length of a football field. Kicks that are covering 65 yards on kickoffs and 40 yards. Well, I hope ours go 40 yards on punts. But there's large chunks of area, and when you put speed and athleticism in space, it's very hard to duplicate. So you hold your breath, you hope you've crossed every T and dotted every I going into your opening game for special teams, but certainly there's always an emphasis to say, how do we make a difference in this segment of the game? 1 out of every 6 plays of a college football game is some form of kick, and when you start to look at it that way, it plays a huge role in a football game. And so it's not just, I got to play special teams, but it's what we call our dirty dozen and trying to create a pride amongst our dirty dozen. And I think Dennis Smith has done a really good job of getting these players to buy into that philosophy, and not just buy into it, but even continue to build on that philosophy where our special teams, I don't want them just to be a neutral part of the game. I'd love to see them be able to make a difference in the game.
Are you coming into this game pretty healthy?
Yeah, relatively. You have bumps and bruises that are, as you go through camp, you have guys that, this guy's dealing with an Achilles. You got to shut him down for a couple days. This guy had a wisdom tooth pulled. He was shut down for a couple days. You've got some of those bumps and bruises. We're pulling back a little bit more this week as we're coming out of camp, trying to get all those bumps and bruises healthy. Right now, I don't feel like it's going to stop anybody on the depth chart from playing right now. Trey Baldwin and B.J. Williamson, both newcomers to the starting position. Trey has really earned this over a 3-week time period. He earned it over a 3-week time period when Connor Taylor was running with the ones. He being Trey Baldwin was running in the backup. Mike was doing a really nice job with it, was growing and developing. And then in the last scrimmage, I thought he played really, really well. And then Randy Hogan did some really good things. And Connor Taylor was out with an injury. And with him missing over a week of camp and those guys getting all the reps, I think it was a combination of the misfortune of Connor getting a bump who should be cleared for this game. But I also think it's Trey Baldwin has earned that opportunity through the 3 weeks of camp and the way that he's progressed. B.J. Williamson is a freshman who's come in here. He's had an incredible battle with Jaden Cole and with Darrell Lewis and with B.J. Williamson. Those 3 have been they've all 3 played field boundary. They've kind of jockeyed for those positions in there. But at the end of the day, I think with what B.J. brings us, athleticism, I think with what he brings us and the ability to cover, I think they're all very intelligent football players. They're all going to play. They're all going to help us. We need them all for this season. They're all going to be part of that core dirty dozen that we talked about. But right now we just felt like B.J. Williamson through camp on the field had earned that position with his play and some of the things that he had done. No, I mean, Coach Herman and Coach Diaco have a little bit of a history, a little bit of a past. Obviously, they know a lot about each other, having been in the same league together, having history together and how they've played each other. But Coach Herman has a different team that he's going to highlight their strengths and try and hide their weaknesses. And Coach Diaco has a different defense, which he's going to try and do the same thing with them. There's obviously some familiarity with each other. I don't know how much it's going to translate into this game. I would imagine both of them at this point are very aware of what they know about each other and the things that each other have done to each other, what they've done to each other in competitive situations. But I would certainly think that I don't think it's going to become a factor. I don't think their history is going to become a factor in the game. I still think the game is going to be determined not with a paper and pencil and a chalkboard or a grease board in there in the meeting rooms. I think the game is going to be determined by the young men that are out on the field that are playing it.
What's life going to be like without Jay Ferg on the defensive side of the football now?
What will life be without Jalen Ferguson? You know, it's been a pretty comforting feeling looking out there seeing that number 45, you know, for the last 4 years for sure. I mean, he has given you security knowing that going into in a third down situation, the pass rusher that he creates, and the things that he could do for you and the way that he could disrupt the football game. I watched it a number of times, especially last year. And it's always hard to replace a player. But we sat here and had to say, how in the world are we going to replace Vernon Butler? How in the world are we going to replace the touchdown production of a Kenneth Dixon and the 1,000 yards rushing that he brought? How in the world are you going to replace the production of a Trent Taylor and his 1,000 yards, or the production of Cody Sokol to Jeff Driscoll to Ryan Higgins? How are you going to replace? I think each and every year, that's why we continue to recruit. That's why we continue to build our football program and to develop the younger players in this team, because the guys that sit in the back of the room as true freshmen right now, they're going to be the guys that are replacing. How we're going to replace Jamar one day, how we're going to replace Adrian Hardy one day, how you're going to replace L'Jarius Sneed and Amik Robertson one day. That's why it's so important, not just through recruiting, but through the development of your football players. And so it'll be hard without them, but hopefully that you got some guys like Kadarian Mason and Courtney Wallace and Milton Williams and Willie Baker that are going to pick up some slack and are going to turn. And it's not just one guy that has to play at that level, but as the tide comes in, you know, all ships will rise. And I think right now that's what we need. We need everybody to pick their game up a little bit to try and make up for all the production that Jay Ferguson brought our program. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing everybody in Austin.